motherfucker.
What's going on, my fellow vinyl lovers? I'm Mr. Godzilla, and today we have a god incarnate, a city doomed! I'm sorry, I just really love that line. That's right, today I'll be reviewing perhaps the most divisive Goji design yet, the 30cm Yuji Sakai series, Shin Godzilla. Before we get started, I'd just like to give a huge shout out to my guy Supergoji74, otherwise known as Joey.
Yo, it's your boy Supergoji here. First, this guy is a massive loser. Second, this toy actually used to technically belong to me. Allow me to explain. For some reason, in Joey's little head, he thought it would be smart to help a friend and save some money by handing said friend the pre-order to a little-known infamous figure known as the Sakai Shin Godzilla from X Plus. I figured, oh, you know, I would just buy it later, right? Right?
Hey, stay out of here, this is my show. As I was saying. Alright, let's get right into it. Here's my disclaimer that this is just my opinion, I'm merely a dumb boy who likes toys. Our zombie-esque friend here is known as Shin Godzilla, Shin Goji, Godzilla 2016, whatever you want to call him, from the film Shin Godzilla, otherwise known as Godzilla Resurgence, though Shin is the more appropriate title. Just to clear the water, Shin can be interpreted to mean new, true, evolved, god, and words like those, chosen specifically for this variety of meanings. Take one look at that face to see why. This film marks the first use of a completely CGI Godzilla, at least for Toho that is. There was actually an 11-foot puppet created for the production, but it ultimately went unused in favor of the brilliant motion capture effects. Was it for better or for worse? You decide. I think it looks phenomenal in the film, and I'm interested in how far we can push this medium. The film itself is part of this new Reiwa era, maybe, not too sure what we're calling it, but it's a politically charged flick about Japan's response to the aforementioned creature, putting on display the incompetent and slow response of the Japanese bureaucracy to crisis and natural disasters. Generally accepted to have gone through 5 stages of growth, we see Godzilla begin as just a tail breaching the water in his first form, ultimately resolving as the most commonly portrayed 4th form and completely decimating Tokyo in this masterful sequence here. By the end of the film, the Japanese people ultimately prevail by freezing them in place. Or do they? It stands as one of the most controversial films in the franchise, at least by my perception of its reception. But whether you love it or hate it, you can't deny its impact on the franchise as a whole, spawning an immeasurable amount of merch and new interest. It's easily one of my favorites of the Godzilla films, if not my #1 pick. Seriously, just go watch this masterpiece if you haven't seen it, or watch it again if you have. You know, as far as boxes go, we have a pretty neat box right here. There's a large and small image of Godzilla as typical of Sakai boxes, his name, interestingly written as Godzilla 2016 in English, with Shin Gojira in Japanese below, as well as Toho 30cm series and Yuji Sakai modeling collection written above. This is actually like the second biggest box I own, and it's cause of that damn tail. But you don't care about the box, so let's move on. I have the standard version here because Joey's dumbass didn't full send the RIC, but it's pretty cool I guess. The RIC has translucent red vinyl and I'd really like to see it in person one day. John Stanowski of Kaiju Addicts has some comparison pics, and honestly both versions have their pros and cons, which is why I think a fair amount of folks double dipped. You really can't go wrong with either, and it's an underused aspect of RICs to be honest. I actually added a RIC light up to this guy simply by shoving remote controlled fairy lights inside him. It would probably be more effective on the translucent RIC, but it's a cool and simple mod that doesn't harm the figure in any way. Shinny Boy is just about 30cm here and... Look, I apologize, but I had to make that joke at least once. Just once. Give it to me. Okay, the actual Shin is roughly 29cm tall and 48cm long. Sakai's tend to be on the shorter side, but this guy's just about there. Though if he were a true 30cm, scaled to the line, he should definitely be much taller. His tail takes up almost 2/3 of his length and is an astonishing 40cm tall on its own. I mean, it's just massive, and you're gonna need an open space to put this guy because of it. He just barely fits in my shelves, but I keep him on top anyway. I'm inclined to say that this is the largest tail yet, aside from the Gigantics. Luckily though, it's curled up and isn't as annoying as other tails. Let's start with a comparison to the Sakai 84 Goji, who I also reviewed and you can find on my channel. Shin lays just a hair, and I mean a hair above the 84, being less than a centimeter difference. Here he is next to the 30cm Hedorah, who's taller but Shin's tail has him beat. Here we have the 25cm Godzilla 2019, who's just shy of Shin by about an inch, but that's probably because he's quite large for a 25cm. How about these for a change? Here's a small magnet bust of Shin's head, along with his atomic breath head and Kamada-kun. That's surprisingly the only other Shin stuff I own. Gotta track me down those 25cm forms and the defos. And we'll finish off with the bottleneck exclusive Shin Cookiezilla. Yes, this is a real thing, and yes, you needed one yesterday. What a pair, simply stunning. While we're on the topic, I'd quickly like to mention the Awakening Shin resin kit that Sakai revealed in mid-2019. It'll inevitably become an X+, and I'll definitely be picking up this companion piece. Sakai's tend to be more pricey, and Shin here retailed for about $210 for the standard, and about $260 for the RIC. His big box was pricey to ship, even back in 2018, so you were looking at about a really rough estimate of $300+ for either version of this guy. Although, as you may know, he is now one of the most sought after X+ to date, perhaps behind his gigantic brother. These days, the prices are quite wild and can range anywhere from $500 to $1,000+ I've seen, and have sold for it. It's a really nice figure, but I'm not quite sure it's that nice. But hey, if you got the cash, and the willpower. First and foremost, let's build a Shin. The tail comes separate, so you gotta heat up the ass and shove it right in. After you've done that, you have to, oh no, please no, the dreaded tail stand! I'll share a little secret with you. He doesn't actually need it. All it does is make his posture a little better so he can stand up straighter. It does make him look more appealing, but if it bothers you that much, you can do away with it. Personally, I don't mind it.
I actually did open the box to look at it, to really, I don't know, just to see it, I guess. And it was an amazing figure, and the texture on it is honestly insane. And to this day, I regret just not keeping it. No, it's a gorgeous figure. I wish I was able to take it out of the box and display it and make love to it all day and night, but I made the mistake of giving the damn thing away. Alright, I'm gonna go head back over to my channel where the cool kids reside. You guys can stay here and listen to this boring review about this totally not incredible, amazing, immaculate Shin Godzilla figure or anything. I'm gonna go hang out with my scuffed up Bandai.
Hey, I told you to stay out of here! Anyways, as a Sakai figure, naturally this guy was sculpted by none other than the master Yuji Sakai himself. If you don't know the name, you seriously need to check him out. Top of the line, Grandmaster Godzilla sculptor. I mean, the guy has a whole X+ line named after him. Come on. This particular figure began as a resin kit, first shown in 2017, and wormed its way into the X+ realm the following year in 2018. The entire Sakai line is just vinyl transfers of these kits, in case you didn't know. Take a minute to just appreciate this design and its representation as a figure, even if it repulses you. That just means it's doing its job. The texture is perhaps the most obvious example to date of the interpreted keloid scarring of nuclear blast victims that Godzilla's skin embodies, opting for a likeness very close to fleshy burns, disfigurement, and open wounds. It's a very powerful yet tragic metaphor that's taken to its extremes, especially knowing how the film ends. He's dirty, gruesome, terrifying, and so incredibly poignant. Truly is the folly of man. You'll needn't look any further for that soulless symbol of horror than the head. I'll admit the texture is a little muddied here, but it still gets right at the heart of the design. Still not used to that. It captures his googly eyes that somehow elicit pure fear and an intimidating, lifeless stare down. And it's not just white paint either, the eyes are 3D, even if it's hard to tell. His teeth are individually sculpted, though some are a little sloppily joined together. The only thing that really bothers me about the head are the glaring seams, mostly on the back, but are still decently obvious. He's also got a bad seam on his arms and on his back, but you probably won't notice it once he's on the shelf, but it's worth mentioning. Shin's chest has always intrigued me by embracing that pointy sternum present on the 54 suit, which was definitely exaggerated in this guy. I love the texture here as well, but much like the head, it's quite muted and a little underwhelming. His T-Rex arms are certainly an interesting take, skinny and creepy yet oh so well done. Let's keep going. Of course the Godzilla design isn't complete without thunder thighs, but ultimately this is where the texture is met the best and most crisp, and it has a wonderfully coarse feel to it. His feet are absolutely killer, standing pointed on his toes with those jagged claws coming out every which way. A look at his tail again reveals a finely tuned finish, detailed and segmented all the way up to its tip. The sculpt on the end here is something to behold, with the bony and rib-like texture protruding outwards ominously. Ugh. I've heard some people mention that the tail is actually shorter than it should be, as if it isn't big enough, but I do think there's some truth to that. Still, I'm not sure how long you can make it before it becomes ridiculous. I'm satisfied with it as it is. Following the tail back down to the spines, I really love that scaly protrusion that manifests into some truly stunning dorsal plates. I love how even the smallest plates still show great attention to detail. Now that's some serious craft. I guess the last thing to point out are the random lumps and bumps throughout the body, nice touches that again add to his persona. Not much else to say here, you've done it again, Sakai-san. Although he may not have the most dynamically intriguing pose, it's just about what you'd expect. The only real action you'll find on him is the curved tail, which looks a lot better than a potentially straight one. Shin wasn't the most mobile of kaiju and was honestly seen exactly in this stance for a good portion of the film. It's very reminiscent of the posters, and I truly don't think it needs to be anything more. He's that intimidating in such a static and neutral pose. Check out this poster recreation by John Ruffin of My Kaiju to see for yourself. It's spot on. Honestly, I'm pretty torn on the paint on this guy. It looks great at times and other times it doesn't. Additionally, some standards seem to have way too much red showing, and the RIC by default does as well. Of course, I'm only going off accuracy. If you dig it, more power to you. I think overall, mine is actually pretty screen accurate, except for maybe the tail, another common area to have too much red showing. The black paint on top of the red mold is overall pretty seamless and makes for a sweet effect. Still, like the last couple figures I reviewed, only in bright lights can you really see this accuracy. Once proper light hits these figures, they really begin to pop. Perhaps my biggest gripe is the glossy paint all around, as I would have much preferred a more matte finish, but instead he's quite shiny in places. These vinyl transfers are obviously not going to hold as much detail as the resin kits, but the paint is too globby and muted in areas like the teeth here, though I do like the dirty yellow color. The paint is also quite weak on the chest, making it appear flat and smooth and effectively muting the rough texture and detail that is prevalent elsewhere. The tip of the tail isn't painted much differently than the rest of the body, but does have some slight brown dry brushing. It's also got two white dots forming the pupils of the face looking thing. I love that detail so much, it's something I definitely missed in the film. To quickly bring up the 25cm Shin, note how differently the two tips are colored. It's hard to tell in the film exactly, but I do think the Sakai needs a little bit more differentiation from the rest of the tail. His nails and claws sport the same dirty yellow color, with a slick gradient that melds perfectly into the skin. Oh, and I just want to quickly point out the eyes. It seems that on enough of these guys the pupils are uneven, with one in the center of the eye on one side and one looking down on the other side. Ultimately, it's a very tiny detail, and I'm just impressed with how precise both the eye white and pupil are in the first place. They're basically microscopic, yet not one drop of paint is out of place. I know I was vague with my take on the paint, but I go back and forth with it. With Shin being one of my favorite designs, and the mascot for this channel, I have to be picky. For the less entitled folk out there, it's pretty damn good. And so, just like that, I close out my analysis of the zombified Godzilla. There's certainly a few drawbacks and some personal preferences, but you really can't go wrong with this figure. There's a reason that everyone and their mother is after one. I don't see myself ever selling it, and it's a breakup on the shelf of that charcoal sea of other Godzillas. If you've got deep pockets and can afford to make some questionable financial decisions, I consider this an essential pickup for Shin fans. He's just too good. It just puts the 25cm version to shame, which by itself really isn't all that bad, but the Sakai's in a whole other realm. It's the definitive Shin figure for sure. I give him 9.8 super thermal radiation particle belt flames out of 10. Whew, that's a mouthful. Thank you guys a ton for watching. Make sure you forget to like and subscribe. Also go subscribe to Supergoji74. And I'll catch you in the next one.